Hit the record button. Welcome, everybody. Welcome all to Sovryn Community Call episode 64. Wow, we've had 64 episodes. We've been doing this for quite a while, and we've got some exciting updates for you all regarding BitcoinOS, Sovryn Layer, and of course, POWA tokens. So let me share my screen real quick and kick off the presentation. So just give me a second. All right, can you guys all see it?
I can.
Great. Yago, why don't we start with you?
Yes. Hold on 1 second. I just made a silly mistake. All right. Well, hello and welcome, Sovereigns. Thank you very much for joining. Everyone who joined. There's a lot going on. I want to start by saying we've been on a long journey together, and we are not at the end of this journey, but at the beginning of, I think, the most exciting part of the journey. We set ourselves a goal. I think we all got excited about the same idea, which was that we were going to bring Bitcoin to its next level of acceleration, the next big wave for Bitcoin, which was going to benefit us personally by allowing us to do more with our Bitcoin, by giving us more financial sovereignty, by allowing us not to have to go through intermediaries for all of the things that we wanted to do. It could be borrowing against our Bitcoin or using Bitcoin-backed stablecoins instead of dirty fiat. It could be trading, earning yield, all of the things that you'd want to do if you actually used Bitcoin as the assets that you lived on and wanted to do it without having to take on the risk of counterparty risk. And we also had a bigger vision. And our bigger vision was that we wanted to create from Bitcoin more than just a transactional system, but instead use it as the basis for an entire operating system for a decentralized financial world, and beyond that, for a decentralized digital world. And we've had this vision long before the rest of the world is caught on. And even now, the vast majority of people inside of Bitcoin and outside of Bitcoin still don't recognize that this is the end game for Bitcoin. That hyper Bitcoinization means that Bitcoin becomes the premier system upon which property rights of all kinds are secured, upon which people are able to do all of the long-term financial things, the non-degen things. And that's everything from, on the personal level, people being able to, manage their savings, manage their retirement account, manage their mortgage, tokenize maybe, their property and be able to borrow against that. And all the way to the other part of what is by far the largest part of all finance, which is long-term investments in major works of infrastructure. Could be data centers or bridges or nuclear power plants. It could be investment for, with a time horizon of 10 and 15 years in a new venture. And it can be, even things like debt instruments, government and corporate bonds. All of these things have horizons of 5 years, 10 years, 30 years. Inheritance has a time horizon of generations. And the only system in the world which can provide that service is Bitcoin, because Bitcoin is not software, it is not hardware, it's something new. It's permaware. And I think this has been sort of like, for us, an obvious realization. But how to turn that from a theoretical realization into practice, that has been the challenge that we have set for ourselves. We've set for ourselves as a community, we've set for ourselves as individuals, we've set for ourselves as a project and a team building in it. And the first part that we did was start unlocking some of the use cases, proving the value of the use cases, refining those use cases, refining the UI, using that as sort of like a proof of concept, using that as a sandbox in which we can learn. And I think Sovryn today is still in that sandbox phase. We always recognized that to go beyond the sandbox phase, we would need to have infrastructure appropriate up to the task. And Rootstock was an excellent sandbox, but it is not the infrastructure that would take us to that place. And frankly, that infrastructure none of the projects out there are that infrastructure today. No system is able to take us to the place where we are able to secure any type of compute directly with Bitcoin. And no system out there allows us to trustlessly utilize our Bitcoin and BTC native assets like runes or any other token that we might have with those, with scale, at low cost, at the kind of speed that true sort of real-time finance requires, and certainly not with the sort of complexity of all of the different ways that you can build DeFi and other computational systems. So that has been why we have invested as individuals and as a community in researching and looking at different ways that we could bring that infrastructure to life. And we are now at the precipice of actually accomplishing that. And that is the reality of what we're doing with BitcoinOS. And I think we must be extremely proud of ourselves. All of us, either by supporting the project, by utilizing the project, or by doing the research, have contributed to bringing us to this place where we're able now to finally make that vision that we've had a reality that is inarguable and a reality which is going to help push Bitcoin to the place where 10 years from now, 15 years from now, it is not only integrated into traditional finance, but it is the rails upon which all global finance is able to be run. And Bitcoin is the internet of money. And when people think about sort of blockchain, they think about Bitcoin, and everything else is sort of an afterthought. So I think we're going through a really, really exciting moment now. An exciting moment for Bitcoin, an exciting moment for us in terms of what we will be able to do with our Bitcoin, and an extremely exciting moment for Sovryn. And it's been a lot of hard work. It's been a lot of ups and downs. It's been a lot of faith from all of us has been required to bring us to this point. So I think, it's time now to do a mini victory lap, and then we'll get back to work. So let's do a mini victory lap. Can we go to the next slide, please? So at Nashville, the biggest Bitcoin conference in the world, a conference which is becoming so systemically important that senators, congressmen, and candidates for the presidency of the United States made their way there. All of Washington, D.C. made its way there, as well as all of Wall Street made its way there, and all of Silicon Valley made its way there, and people from around the world made their way there. And it was there, at that conference, which has become the place where major milestones in the history of Bitcoin on its path to hyper-Bitcoinization occur. It was there that for the first time a ZK proof was verified on Bitcoin. And what that means is that for the first time, Bitcoin got eyes and a brain. It for the first time was able to see things, not just that were occurring on the Bitcoin blockchain, but to see and understand things that were occurring off-chain, understand computation that is occurring off-chain, and secure that computation and execute it on-chain. And so what we did is we created a UTXO which had no owners. We created a UTXO which had a smart contract built into it. And this smart contract controlled that UTXO and was able to lock up ordinals and lock up BTC and then transfer that to a arbitrary address which hadn't been decided on in advance. Every single one of those bullet points was a thing that up until 2 weeks ago was impossible on Bitcoin without a soft fork. And now we are in a new era where all of those things and more are possible on Bitcoin. Not just possible, they are a reality. They have been done. This is huge. And a lot of smart people, not everyone, right? The vast majority of the world sort of got an idea that something important had happened, but there were a lot of smart people. People who, amongst the people who have been designing layer 2 systems for Bitcoin, who have been designing DeFi systems for Bitcoin, who have been designing layer 2s and DeFi for other ecosystems like Ethereum, and people who have been among those sort of responsible for creating the things like BRC20s and ordinals, who have reached out to us, wanting to understand, first of all, what it is that we've done and how we did it, and second, how they can contribute. And so the amount of momentum, the amount of partnerships, the amount of excitement among those who are aware enough to understand the profundity, the depth of what has occurred now, we're seeing massive momentum. And so I'd like to give everyone who has been involved in Sovryn and in this project, and has brought us to this point. I think, I said I want to, give a big thank you and a round of applause to all of these people. We have made history, and we've made a real significant breakthrough, and one which will change and open the door for us to accomplish all of the things that we've been talking about for years. And I think we're now exiting the sandbox and are going to actually be able to start creating in practice, the full scope of the vision that we've always had. So that is for everyone who has been involved and has stuck with this up until this point. Now, if we could go over. If we could go to the next slide, please. Okay, so this was the transaction. If I remember correctly, it was transaction 853626. So we've had 85,000 blocks, not transaction, sorry, block height. We've had 85,000 blocks without this ability, and now we have blocks with this ability. What we did was we not only wrote ZK proof to Bitcoin, we not only wrote a smart contract, but we also demonstrated the verification of it. And there's some interesting pieces of information here, which I think you guys will be interested to hear. The transaction to write the proof to Bitcoin was $200. That was after a great deal of optimizations. There's still some optimization that can be done, but this is already dirt cheap, because that one transaction can now encapsulate potentially thousands of Bitcoin transactions. Which means that we now have an actual measure of the degree of scale that we'll be able to provide. And it's, but depending on how many transactions we're generating, it can be very, very high. So we are expecting that even if that price were to rise significantly, even if you're only wrapping up just 1,000 transactions, we would still be able now to accomplish transactions secured by Bitcoin, transactions on layer 1, right, that are settling to layer 1, but they will cost only a cent. And yet at the same time, we will be buying up significant chunks of Bitcoin block space, making Bitcoin block space more valuable, more expensive, and improving and securing the security budget of Bitcoin. Another interesting piece is the question of the actual verification. Now, this verification usually does not need to be done. It only needs to happen if someone tries to cheat. And just to give you guys an idea of how rare an event that is, with Arbitrum in its 4 years of history as a rollup, there's only been a single time that they've needed to perform the sort of interactive challenge process. Okay, so let's say, so we're not going to need to do that frequently. But let's say we did need to do it. How much would it cost? Well, we now know. It costs just over $2,000. In other words, we're now able even to deal with the most challenging scenario for this. The cost in terms of block space is minimal. The cost in terms of the challenge and the verification is minimal, certainly manageable. And perhaps the most interesting part of it is that we were able to do it over the course of 24 transactions and in 6 Bitcoin blocks. Right? So that's an extremely short. That's a highly efficient system that even when things go wrong, the verification is only taking 6 blocks. Now, in practice, it might take in the wild longer than that, but that's a really great base from which to start. So can we go into the next slide, please? So where are we now? We now have the core primitive, which allows us effectively to do any level of scaling, privacy, or compute on Bitcoin. We now have the core primitive, which is going to allow us to turn Bitcoin from more than just a transactional system into an operating system for a digital and decentralized world. And we're now in the path, we have the key primitive to build out BitcoinOS and the first Bitcoin rollups. So let me tell you where we stand with that. We expect to have a production-ready testnet of the first Bitcoin rollup in roughly 12 weeks. So before the end of the year. Beyond that, I'm going to be able to tell you a little bit about some of the work that is being done around some of the rollups that we're developing. And we're currently expecting that that would allow us to go with sort of an MVP rollup on mainnet as early next year. So we're very close to the place where this is actually going to be on mainnet, available to thousands, tens of thousands, and eventually millions of users to use every single day. Okay, so how does that play with Sovryn Layer? Well, that first rollup that we're developing, that is being developed by the BitcoinOS team, that first rollup is the Sovryn Layer. And we will be looking to deploy to that rollup the suite of applications developed by Bitcoin, upgrade some of them, upgrade the UI on some aspects, provide for trustless bridging, and canonize SOV, create a canonical version of SOV which is no longer registered, written to rootstock, but is registered and written to Bitcoin itself. And this is where you guys come in. We have a short period of time in which we need to do a huge amount of community building, a huge amount of education. We need the world to understand the profound impact that this is going to have. And we need people to understand that this is not just a BitcoinOS thing, that this is not just a whole bunch of different rollups thing, that this is, we need people to understand the significance of this for Bitcoin and the significance of this for Sovryn. And so this is where you guys come in. We need to see everything to do with BitcoinOS, seeded by the Sovryn community. Can we go to the next slide, please? BitcoinOS currently has a Telegram, has a Twitter, and as of a few days ago, has a Discord. There's never been a more important moment for the Sovryn community to galvanize, to join the Discord, to follow the Twitter, to comment, like, and spread the word on Twitter and in Discord. And perhaps most importantly, because you guys understand what's happening, its significance, its implications, and how it's happening better than 99.99% of the population, better than 99.9% of the crypto population, better than 99.9% of the Bitcoin population. We need you guys to act as ambassadors, as evangelists, and more than anything else, as sort of community managers who can help explain to people what is the implication here. Now, we're going to be putting out materials to make that easier, but we've already spoken about this in more within this community than probably this has been discussed in any other community anywhere in the world. And so the level of understanding here is best. And this ties to the SIP that was initially proposed by Dark Matter and is currently sort of being worked on further to bring to execution by the BitcoinOS team. The BitcoinOS team needs to see the Sovryn community. It is a community, the BitcoinOS community, the developers and the people working on it is growing all the time. The stakeholders are growing all the time. We need to make a show of force in terms of our involvement, our engagement, and our ability to articulate the vision on a personal basis, and on a broadcast basis, like on Twitter or in Discord, so that there's like an army of us explaining what the value, what the importance, and what the roadmap here is. So as we put out more information, that will become easier and easier, but already there's so much to discuss. So I beseech you all, we're so close to seeing the rocket ship of Sovryn and the rocket ship of Bitcoin take off. I need to ask everyone to get on board. This is the moment. This is what we've been sort of training for. This is the moment where we need to start becoming as active as we can. All right. I think, let's see. We're going to discuss some other things, but I'd like to pause here and answer any questions that come up. I see already Time Chain Man has asked a question. How long until I get my... I don't understand the question. Time Chain Man, if you want to rephrase, it's not clear to me what you're asking. Does anyone else, either in text or in voice, want to ask a question?
Yeah, I could ask a question.
Sure. Who's speaking?
David.
Hi, David.
Hey. It's regarding the power thing, but it's just an idea that I was gonna bring up regarding the low prices on runes right now. If we would create some cheap liquidity pools, maybe we could make an argument for buying them now that they're down so much that we could get an investment going on that. So in the end, if we believe in runes and want to have a rune exchange for Sovryn and also for POWA, it will benefit that as well. But in general, if we create those pools now and the prices is this low, might be a good investment as everything grows, because you get a lot of users on these top runes when everything turns. That could.
I'd like to ask.
Yeah.
I think what you're saying is a great idea. And so what I would like to do just here very quickly, we've had this idea of creating a sort of index fund of runes. And then what we would do is that index fund, the funds raised, would be used to purchase sort of the index of the top runes, and those runes would then be placed into liquidity pools in order to earn additional revenue. And so,
Sorry, there's background noise from someone.
If you're not speaking, please make sure that you are muted. Thank you.
Scarcity Minor, Scarcity, please type in the chat if you want to talk.
So if you so the idea would be we could potentially tokenize a sort of index fund for runes, utilize that also as seed liquidity for various runes pools on Sovereign. The question that I have for this for you guys here, and you can just use a show of hands to give me a sense. Actually, if Ingemar, maybe you write this as a question in the chat so that people can just give a thumbs up or thumbs down.
Yeah, sure.
If we were to do something really simple, because we simply do not have the capacity to go and do something complex around this. But if we were to do something really simple and just basically create, Exchequer would create like an address or a multisig or whatever, and say, all right, guys, if you want, here's 7 days. You can send funds in to this address for 7 days. We will utilize it to acquire an index of the top runes now that the prices are low, and we will then distribute to people pro rata based on how much they've sent in, a token representing that index. Would people be interested? Like, who here would basically, with an 80% confidence, contribute $100 or more to such a fund?
Yeah, I mean, I could contribute, but my question is more regarding. I mean, I could even contribute now because I have a lot of runes, and I'm into the whole investing of it and everything. That's why I brought it up, because I think that there's a chance even for us to invest in that as a treasury thing. Not only contributing because that's smart to gather as many people as possible, but maybe also if we have funds available to invest with, maybe we should look at some of the better ones, like 3 or 4 that have big community, a lot of holders, because they're so cheap market cap wise that if we believe in the rune thing at all, then we should take the opportunity now when it's so cheap, because later on it's going to be 500% higher. You're going to get outpriced on doing any smart investment with this, creating the pools. I mean, because the thing is, if we reach out to the teams,
David, with
they
regards
just
to that,
decline us, because we don't have any. Yeah,
I think you could propose a SIP around this if you wanted, a declarative SIP. But I will say that traditionally, Exchequer has been extremely conservative with deployment of funds, and the majority has been kept in sort of Bitcoin-backed stablecoins. A lot of it is in Bitcoin-backed stablecoins and in Bitcoin. And I think that that's worked out well for us in terms of being able to manage the treasury. So I think that's open to debate, but certainly without sort of that kind of community debate, my expectation is that Exchequer would not take a speculative bet in that way, but we as a community could.
exactly. I get your point. But what about POWA? Because I talked with French a little bit, or he mentioned it. He seems positive to it. He wondered what you thought about it. So maybe there's other possibility with the, I don't know, the treasury, how everything works with either POWA or Sovereign, because it benefits both. Because you could set it up in a way where it leads to Bob, so the actual pools would not have to be that big, because people over there, they don't trade that much, and it could generate some marketing ideas to get people over there for starters, and then of course over to what's it called, BOS as well. But the whole thing is, if we get some things going now with this thing in the coming months, this additional push on this front as well would also lead to a lot of good marketing possibilities, is what I'm thinking. You seem on board, and I get your point. I'm just opening up if we have maybe possibilities to actually try to invest in something, because if we don't show anything from our side that we're willing to build out the decks with runes, maybe the other teams that's not interested to list with us, maybe that's because they don't see nothing going on. But if we start to slowly get some traction, maybe others want to join easier. Anyways, thanks for
As
that.
you were talking, the question went to people here on the call. 7 people have responded so far, and all 7 said that they would be interested in contributing to such a sort of an index fund. My proposal is, after this community call, start a thread in the forum. Let's discuss it there, and perhaps we can action this immediately. Thank you very much,
Sounds
David.
good.
Thanks,
Time
David.
Chain Man has asked how long until I think this all goes mainstream. My view is that if indeed we are able to put out the first roll-ups at the beginning of next year, then the year 2025 and the bull market that I believe that will be associated with it, stretching perhaps into 2026, will be dominated by one main narrative, which is the growth of the Bitcoin ecosystem. That's my view.
All right, we got a couple more people typing. Time Chain Man says, thanks, Iago.
As these people are typing, I'm going to suggest that we move on to slide 8, and I think it's French Victory who wants to discuss POWA, and then we can come back to Q&A.
Cool.
All right. Thank you, Iago. So, POWA Rune, the burn is coming soon. The latest date it can happen is September 30th. And to make as much hype as possible around that, and to keep facilitating the account with content and outreach to other account, Balea has stepped up to be our sort of POWA's outreach manager, and he's joining with Molo, who is quite busy with with his newborn kid. So he's not super present, but Balea is here to represent the community and push POWA into the ears and accounts of influencers. Balea, do you want to speak up and tell update everyone about what you've been doing? Okay, I'm gonna let you find that unmute button.
Yes,
Oh,
over now. Just let me mute my space from Power. Yeah. So I take over the Twitter account, the Power Twitter account, and I will try to build up some followers from the Rune ordinal communities and to try to engage with them and with the other runes to be seen like a growing community and a prospective rune in the future. And also, I make a spreadsheet, a Google sheet about with some potential influencers to reach out. And the things are going well, but I will need some suggestions from a community when I suggest the influencers to say yes, no, we want it, yeah, we follow it, and this type of things. Other things that I want to talk is about 1,000 euro. Yeah, I'm from Europe, so 1,000 euro. This can be from me also personally, from my pocket, for anyone who convince Rune project to list on Sovereign Dex Bob. And probably this project will be better to aim from for a Rune utility project, because this type of project have a team, have a budget, probably they raise money, so and they have interest in teaming up with Sovereign and with Bob. So yeah, that's it.
thank you very, very much, Balea, and big up on the initiative and the desire to move things forward for us. All conversation is happening in the Rangers channel, and Balea will update us there. Thank you very, very much. We can move back to the previous slide.
Yago, it seems like we do have one more question from the solution. If we want to address that.
Yeah.
He says,
So the solution writes, I've seen criticisms of Bitcoin rollups saying that they're very expensive to actually settle in Bitcoin, are not super scalable. But some of your comments seem to suggest otherwise. How cheap and fast do you expect BitcoinOS to make user transactions right now? And how does it address these concerns? These concerns are real. And they are envisioning a particular kind of Bitcoin rollup. The kind of Bitcoin rollup that they are envisioning is one in which all transaction data is written to Bitcoin, and that Bitcoin acts as a data availability layer for the rollup. Now, that is a possibility with BitcoinOS, and it is indeed the way that you would construct a rollup for the absolute highest level of sort of Bitcoin security. There are, of course, trade-offs to that, which is it makes the transactions much more expensive, and it makes the potential scalability much less. And so there's other ways that you can construct rollups in Bitcoin, where you utilize different DA layers. And there you are taking some risk that the data, right? What is the data? The data is sort of the history of transactions that occur on the rollup are not secured by Bitcoin itself. The ordering of the transactions, the canonization of the transactions, and in particular the block ordering of everything that occurs in the rollup is still completely secured by Bitcoin. But if you want to be able to go and look for the history of transactions today, if you want to look for the history of Bitcoin transactions, you go onto Bitcoin. Here, if you're using a different DA layer, then you would go somewhere else. It could be your own computer, it could be a decentralized network. There are many options. And different rollups, different execution environments, and different use cases will choose different ways of utilizing this. If you are less concerned about the data availability, then potentially the level of scalability that you get is infinite, and the cost per transaction can be extremely low. So it's not such a black and white thing. As in everything, there is a trade-off. Even with the most expensive transactions, you're still able to scale Bitcoin perhaps 10x, perhaps 40x. But with different constructions, you're able to scale it maybe forever. BitcoinOS is not planning to have a specific DA layer, but rather utilize maybe several. Initially, I expect that Sovryn Layer will launch with what's known as a Data Availability Committee, which is a set of full nodes who provide that data, and that will provide maximal flexibility that we can then utilize any DA layer in the future. All right. Are there any other questions?
okay, it looks like that's it for questions for now.
All right. So then I want to go back to slide 6, please, and I want to reiterate.
This?
Yes. No. Slide 6. The slide before. The slide after this.
Boom?
No.
I'm sorry, I don't know the number of the slides.
The one before this one.
Got it.
Awesome. I want to reiterate. It is my intention for us to get a SIP through and a commitment for BitcoinOS to get to provide 10% of the tokens to the sovereign community. We still need to do two things. One, we need to come to some kind of agreement as to how those tokens would be distributed. We need to have that debate amongst ourselves, but it's not only up to us. It's also, of course, up to BitcoinOS. And so anything that we propose, they would need to agree to. Second, we must show value even now. One of the biggest things that we can do, and one of the biggest motivators here, is that the sovereign community act as sort of like the head of the spear for education and growing the community of BitcoinOS. And so I again, I want to emphasize it's really important that we all become super active here. The BitcoinOS is a growing community and is a sort of project in many ways in its infancy. Certainly, the technology is more advanced, but in terms of its sort of public pronouncements and it's going to market and it's growing community, it's still in its infancy. Now, I think it's going to ramp up extremely fast. And here on the call, we have some of the people, a couple of the people who are, if they agree, I'll introduce them, who are taking the lead on making that happen. And I think we're going to melt faces with BitcoinOS and with Sovryn, but it's really important for me and for all of us that the Sovryn community start to become extremely loud, extremely active, extremely engaged, extremely involved. Now is the time. We must do this now. And so I've asked for the slide to come up again, and I'm emphasizing again. And for those of there's many more of us who are not in this call, but will be watching it later online, and many more of us who are in the Discord, in the Sovryn Discord, in the Sovryn channels. This should be a major topic of conversation, and you guys are, not just the head of the spear. You can help lead Sovryn community to rally for this purpose. Now is the time. We need to start accelerating our involvement with BitcoinOS as much as possible, and we need to accelerate BitcoinOS as much as possible. So, I don't frequently make such emphatic calls. I'm doing it now because it's serious. Now is the time. So, someone is suggesting, Time Chain Man again, suggesting that we make it fun. We are considering some kind of game, making games around it, but guys, we need to be serious here. This is more than just games. This is what we've been working towards since day zero. So now is the time for us to take as much concentrated action as we can. The next 2 or 3 months are going to be critical. Thank you. That's what I had to say on that.
So you're speaking to the team of marketing, or in specifically, what do you mean?
So just to be very clear, right? I think I've been clear on this in the past. I'm deeply involved in BitcoinOS, and I'm pushing it forward, and I'm contributing, and I'm helping to lead the BitcoinOS project. But I'm not the only stakeholder there, and I need all the support of the community that I can get.
Yeah, pushing like marketing wise, you mean?
Marketing, community, and helping to explain to people who are coming in and asking questions what this means. I've been speaking about it. I did a podcast yesterday with Vlad. Guys can watch that. They will probably give a lot of insight if which I haven't had always the time to write about to talk about here. There's another podcast that I did this morning, which should be coming out tomorrow. If you want to fill out your understanding of what's going on, I haven't been tweeting as much over the last few months because I've been extremely busy. I'm hoping that I will find it within myself to do more of that and to do more writing. But right now, the best way I think is to sort of watch those and sort of help and amplify what we're doing here and the messages and become the seed members of the community. We've got an amazing community here at Sovryn. Let's replicate it. Let's provide ourselves as the base DNA for the BitcoinOS community.
So Time Chain Man asks a very good question. How can non-social media connected people contribute? Copywriting, customer service, etc. I think some of the great things you can do is join these channels and just help us bolster the numbers, the excitement, the conversations, the memes that are that you can create. I think we just need like that sovereign energy that that we've been having for years, that excitement for growth and scalability of Bitcoin and the utilization of Bitcoin. Sovryn is the first to know, about BitcoinOS, and we kind of want you to lead that community charge. Liaxar asked, "Can we get links to the interview and other sources you just mentioned, Iago?"
Absolutely. We'll get all of that posted across the various channels.
Cool. Yeah, we'll make sure to post every bit of content that we can, so you guys can circulate and get others interested. So thanks very much, Sovereigns.
All right, guys. If there is nothing else, I think actually we've frankly, we've covered already quite a lot. I think we could potentially bring this call to a close. Thank you everyone for joining. Stay sovereign.
Stay sovereign, everybody.